I need to turn this wire into 22,000 jump rings so I can make myself a chainmail hobart. I'm gonna need more wire. Oh, this is gonna take forever. Today, I'm gonna make a wire winding jig so I can make these wire coils that I'll cut my jump rings out of. If you've been around here much, you know that I love my 18mm Baltic birch plywood, and that's what we're gonna use for the main part of this jig, although any lumber is really gonna work okay. Additionally, we're gonna need some glue, wood screws, 608 skateboard bearings, washers, bolts, some steel bars, and also optionally some V-groove bearings. That's gonna help set the tension when we're actually doing the winding for the jump rings. For the full length of the jig, I'm gonna go with a 5 foot or 1,500 millimeters. You could definitely do 4 feet or 1,200 millimeters, especially since most of the time the steel rods come in 1 meter or 3 feet lengths. So 4 feet or 1,200 would be fine. I'm just gonna make mine a little bit longer because I have it. You're gonna cut out of this 2 strips that are 110 millimeters long and then 2 25mm strips. I will probably be switching back in between imperial and metric because that's the way that I work, but I do have some plans for sale that I'll have linked down in the description, and those will have the metric and imperial fully separated apart. With all the wood pieces cut, it's time to go ahead and start putting together the drill carriage. For this, we're gonna lay on the underside 2 bearings on one side and 1 of the bearings on the other side, and it's gonna run with this piece of wood to make sure that the carriage isn't wobbling all over the place. So we need to mark down a center line on this piece of wood. With that center line marked, we can come over to the side 11 millimeters and make a mark for 2 holes where we're going to screw in those bearings. So we'll put 2 bearings on the one side. Then with those bearings installed, we can come and take the centerpiece, push it up against those 2 and put 1 bearing in the center on the other side, mark where that is, drill it out, and then it should run smoothly along this. You don't want it to hold on too tight. You want it to move fairly smoothly. This isn't super important on the accuracy. We just don't want it veering off of the base. I'm having a ton of fun. It's been a while since I did a plywood and bearing project, and this is kind of my favorite. Anyways, this is working great. It's rolling really nicely. Now what we need to do next is we have to put these side pieces, these runners, on there that are gonna hold the bearings, so we're not actually just pushing up against wood, but we're rolling on the bearings. So we need to drill 2 holes on each one of these, put in the bearings, and then glue and screw these onto the carriage. This worked out great. It runs super smooth. In fact, when I first tried it, I shot it off the table and dinged the corner. So be a little bit careful. Now we need to attach this rail so it's attached to this base piece. I'm gonna mark off the side where it needs to go so it's perfectly centered, and then I can glue and screw it into place. All right, still looking good, still riding nice. So basically our drill is gonna be riding on here, and then we gotta take these pieces and build out the part that's gonna hold the block that will hold the rod on this side that attaches to the drill. So we just need to glue and screw in this portion so it can hold the blocks in the front that's gonna guide the steel rods. The bushing holder is done, all glued and screwed together. One thing though I do wanna say, my countersink bits are not very nice. The holes are looking kinda ugly on this project, and for some reason, it's finally bothering me. So if you have some countersink bits that you really like, let me know down in the comments so I can check those out and hopefully upgrade my countersink bits. Now we have the most tricky part of this build, and it's really custom. Here's the general idea. We're gonna support the front of the drill first. In my case, I'm gonna make a half circle that this can rest on that'll lift the drill slightly off the base of this carriage. With that in place, I'm gonna put holes in the back where I can thread on the bolts that I've been using for this. And then I wanna lift those up until the drill is pointing perfectly parallel. And this is important that your drill is parallel. Then from there, we're gonna put 2 pieces of wood, so 1 on each side, and we'll drill 2 holes in each where we can thread those and then also run bolts in to adjust the drill side to side so we can get that nice and lined up. And then because we put our wood slightly lower than the full height of the drill, we can put a single piece and bolt that down so it holds tight against all these other touch points. And then your drill should be able to easily come out and doesn't have to be all bolted down all crazy and weird and permanent. I'm really happy with the way that mounting the drill turned out to this carriage. I did change a couple of things though from the original plan. I actually only have 1 bolt on each side. That's all that it really seemed to need, but I did add a bolt on the back, and I did that to shove it up tight up against this front piece. Again, this is gonna depend on your drill, but I'm happy with how this turned out. It's super stable in there. With the drill mounted in the carriage, now we can use some relative dimensioning to put a hole in our bushing holder exactly where the rod is gonna need to go through. By putting in just a little drill bit, we can just hold this in place and come up and drill right through it. I'm also gonna make another change for the bushings. Instead of steel like I was originally thinking, that'd be steel on steel. So I'm gonna go with a hardwood on there. I have a couple of scrap pieces of rosewood, and they're a little bit oily already. And I think with steel on wood, it's gonna be quieter. I'm not running at super high speeds, and I can remake these super easy. You could do plywood if you want. I've used that before with oil in there, and that works well. But since I already have an oily hardwood, I'll go with that. Now we have the optional step is we can take some of these V-groove bearings and attach them onto the face of this so we can add some pre-tension and make sure that the wire is going exactly where we want it to go. I want to use really big rolls, not have to mess around with it feeding from a different direction. And so this is going to really help the wire feed on nice and smoothly. Now I can only find 10mm bearings in these large metal V-grooves. And so I'm gonna use this aluminum can to cut me some shim, wrap it around my bolts, and then I'll be able to mount 2 of these, and this should feed in great. I've got a couple of steel rods that I'll be using to wrap the wire around. This one I've used in the past, so it actually already has a hole on one end. That works well if you're just doing it by hand, like with a hand drill and helping it. But in this case, I'm gonna use the bandsaw to cut a groove, and then I'll file that groove a little bit bigger so that I can slip the wire in. That'll make it really easy when I'm done. It'll only be a single snip to cut it, and then the whole thing can just roll off the rod. So it saves me a little time each time that I do one. With the groove cut in the end of the rod, we're almost ready to start winding. I do have this foot pedal, which I love. I'll have a link down in the description, but basically I plug the drill into this and then this into power, and then I can control the speed of the drill and the starting off with the foot pedal. I do put a clamp on the trigger of the drill, which allows me to set that speed to the max speed of what I want with the pedal pushed all the way down. So for me, that's only about half the full speed of the drill, and that feels good when I'm running at that. So the pedal really helps in the control and is just super convenient. Now when you're winding this, what you want to do is put a little kink on the end of the wire, and you can feed it in between the bearings, and then your wire will just feed up through that. Spin it a couple times, then just put your foot down on the pedal and wind away. When you get to the end, just clip it, press the pedal to finish it up, and then the whole thing will slide off. Super fast and takes less than a minute. I'm super happy with the way that this turned out. I'm able to make a coil in only a minute, and so I can batch these out super fast. I've got some plans for sale down below if you're interested. Also make sure you hit that subscribe button because I'm planning on making a cutter as well. And then later, I'll make the actual armor for a 3-part series. So you don't want to miss that, right? You don't want to miss it. Thanks so much for watching and take care. Thanks so much for talking, chatting, dancing, watching.